The rejection yesterday by the RMT of an alleged offer from government. There's always a little bit more to these stories than meets the eyes. But the strike that everybody hoped would be averted is now to go ahead. It means the network will be all but closed on the 13th, 14th, 16th and 17th of December, with days before and after the action as well. And the so-called Sandwich Day on December the 15th, which will also be affected with severely limited networks. There's a new pay offer to the RMT on Sunday, including, they say, a 5%. Well, we'll go into the details a little later. Let's focus on the passion of it. I've had enough now. I've had enough of pretending that there are two equal sides to these stories and that there are somehow balances to be struck. It's just ridiculous. Obviously, our railways have been, just like our water companies and our energy companies, our railways have been treated like cash cows by people who largely don't even live here. It's not a sort of UKIP perspective to suggest that people making profits out of an institution should be paying taxes in the country where the institutions operate. Our railways are owned in large part by foreign governments. Why? Because they're fruit machines which are rigged to deliver jackpots on every spin. It's incredible. And the only losers, the people who never hit 3 melons in a row, are the passengers. The idea that the RMT are responsible for the a decline in the quality of rail service and indeed the need for better terms and conditions for its members is just beyond a joke now. And the Tories are doubling down. They fancy a fight because they're so pathetic now. They're so utterly robbed of anything that remotely resembles policy, principle or personality that they're just casting around for things that worked in the 1970s in the hope that they might work now. Suella Braverman almost co-opting National Front-style rhetoric. She's yet to manage to translate it into policy because a lot of it would be illegal. So you've got Suella Braverman nicking the National Front's manifesto, and now it would seem that Mark Harper, the Transport Secretary, thinks he's woken up in a boxing match with Red Robbo in 1974. And it's ridiculous because the railways are a joke. I could be wrong. It's 8 minutes after 10. You can tell me that I am in about 10 minutes' time. I could be wrong, but when the RMT say we're going on strike to get a better deal for our workers, but also to protect the railway network, I don't think we've paid them enough heed and enough respect when they talk like that. How much evidence would we need that if you allow the untrammeled interests of private equity or of investors to ride roughshod over everything else that matters, whether it's the workforce or the customer base, how much more evidence do we need that they really are prepared to screw things right into the ground? Go and drink a glass of water. Go and take a gulp. Go and have a little guzzle of your nearest river or waterway. I appreciate it's not something you should be doing on a regular basis, but if you went swimming or surfing, you could not that long ago fairly reliably conclude that you wouldn't get seriously ill. You wouldn't end up with a belly full of somebody else's emissions. You can't do that now. Why? Because the prioritization of profit over absolutely everything else has been allowed to flourish in this country to such a degree that we've completely forgotten the concept of customer service. We've completely forgotten that people making money out of a utility, if it's completely in the private sector, if you're flogging handbags or ping pong balls, then I think the principles are different. But if you're flogging infrastructure, if you're flogging national essentials like energy, like transport, then there should be a huge relationship between capital and customer, between employer and employee. And I've sat here now for, good God, the best part of 20 years. The first time I made an absolute muppet of myself on this radio station was with Bob Crow, actually, the late General Secretary of the RMT, who could dance around aggressive journalists like Muhammad Ali dancing around George Foreman. It was pathetic how easily he duffed me up and chucked me in the bin. And the reason was that I came to the fight, I came to the encounter with the attitude of a tabloid newspaper journalist, because all I ever saw, this is what's so interesting.